Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to chat today. So, I would love to start if you could let the listeners know who is Laura and what does she bring to this world?
Yes, I am a live force. I have a lot of fun, love oysters and champagne, but in the world, I am a trauma specialist and the founder of Healing to Happy, which helps entrepreneurs, creative coaches, teachers really tap into their heart-centered leadership and going through and creating businesses that are more trauma informed and regulating to the nervous system and really expanding their nervous system so they can have the health, wealth, and relationships that sometimes we get too caught up in our trauma responses in creating our businesses. And so we're dismantling that within our brand. And I love it.
Yes. Yes, I love that too. And I think when we think of trauma, we always think of a huge, big life event, but trauma can actually be like small, little things that happen to you. How do you help women uncover those things? Like sometimes maybe we don't even know what it is.
Yeah, oftentimes people don't even know what it is. And that's the thing. Like trauma gets this bad rap where we don't want to look at it because one, we think it's not big enough to look at. It's not big T trauma, but it could be you had an illness one time and now you're afraid of a food. It could be you got in a car accident and like now all of a sudden like driving a car is a little bit scary, or you got your heart broken. We can all relate to that one. That is a trauma that we have all been through. And trauma isn't the event. And that's what gets confused. Trauma is how your body responds to an event and gets trapped in the emotion. So there's 4 stages: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And if we get stuck in one of those phases and we don't actually let our body go through that full spectrum, we get stuck in it and we start to live in these self-protection mechanisms and we start to build up these belief systems. So it could even be money beliefs. We all have a lot of money trauma, which is very common. We all have a lot of relational trauma, even if it's not domestic violence or cheating or anything like that. We got our heart broken. So therefore now we're like, oh, I don't trust so-and-so, or like someone says something and you're like, oh, like that triggered me in this kind of way. And we start to look at little things like that, where it's maybe you don't identify with the word trauma, sure, but do you have roadblocks in your life? Sure you do. Do you have habits you're trying to change? I'm sure you do. Do you have belief systems that you know are a little bit not aligned with the person that you want to come and become in your life? I'm sure you do. These are all trauma responses because our body is in this quote unquote self-protection mechanism. And therefore, to stay safe, we've built up these now beliefs or habits or systems and what have you to keep us stuck in that kind of a paralleled thinking.
That makes perfect sense. And I've heard of fight or flight. What were the other two that you just mentioned?
Fight, fright, freeze, fawn.
Oh,
And so when we want to go through these phases, we have fight, normal, sympathetic, fight, flight, freeze. I think we know those ones. And freeze is like when we will be in shutdown, and fawn is the same thing. It's kind of disassociation. We're bouncing back and forth. And so when we want to shake it out, like you can see it with animals, right? Like when they get triggered by something, say like more, we see this with wild animals. Domesticated animals are a little bit different. They do have anxiety and attachment issues and things of this nature. If you have an attached anxious dog, you will know what I'm talking about. But when you look at wild animals, you can see they'll hear something, they'll get startled, they'll stop, and they go into freeze response. And sometimes they'll play dead, and sometimes they'll, whatever it's called, play possum, what have you. And then the attacker will pause for a second, they'll be able to flee. And then you'll see them at the end and they'll shake it out of their system and they'll get back into calibration and they move on with their life. As humans, something happens and we just trap the emotion. So we don't get through it, we don't move on from it, and we're just stuck in this. Why am I having this limiting belief? Why do I have this scenario continually happen in my life? When we see these patternings repeat themselves, I see it a lot with my clients where it's like relationship issues or arguments or money blocks or things of this issue. And they're like, why does this keep happening? And it's like, where in your storyline did this happen? Where an emotion got trapped, where this belief system got put into stone. And now we have to create safety around that so we can actually build resiliency for the future.
and I know a lot of this involves taking care of our minds and our bodies because that's where most of it gets trapped. So how do we start with that? Like,
Broad question.
yes.
It's For me and my clients, what we start with is the basics. So my previous life, my first 6 years of my career was all nutrition based. So I was an IBS anxiety specialist. So I specialize in polyvagal theory and the gut brain connection and nutrition, right? How can we take care of the human and create safety? Are you sleeping enough? Are you eating the right foods? Do you know how to eat for the cycles of your life, especially as women? You go through 4 of them. Do you know how to eat for them? Do you know how to take care of yourself and really tap into your basic bodily needs first? And then from there, we can start to look at some things and start to be like, okay, so how can we play with safety? So for me, I come from a background where I had a whole bunch of big T trauma, sexual assaults, domestic violence, addictions, mother loss, like all these kind of things. So safety to me was chaos, right? Like I actually, when it came to like meditation and yoga and the things that we quote unquote hear about how we get healthy and whatever, that stuff did not sit well with my nervous system. So it's really looking at like, where are you actually at right now? And what's that next stretch to get into safety? So obviously running around and being chaotic and drinking and doing drugs like I was is not the right way of doing things. That's just living out a trauma response. So stretching that would be, okay, how can I practice getting into my body, putting my hands on my body, tapping, like playing with systems like that, breathing a little bit deeper, making sure that I'm doing a body scan. Like I used to set timers in my phone to remind me to breathe because I would just forget, and having to work with that to get to a space where now like I can sit in meditation, I can do Pilates and yoga. Like we get to play with the nervous system in this way. And it's not that we're quote unquote stuck in our ways, which a lot of people think with the nervous system. Oh, like I'm this way and therefore I'm going to always be this way. It's like plastic. Yes, you will be that way if you don't apply heat, but just like if you apply heat to plastic, it's moldable. So we start, it depends on, and this is why I'm like rambling right now, because it depends, right? Like it depends how early on was it in your life? How extreme has it been impacting your current situation? How healthy are you? What is your vagal tone like to get you to bounce back? Like it's really individual, but for anyone, it's really looking at, am I treating myself well? Am I eating right? Am I sleeping right? Am I getting outside? Am I moving my body? Can we start there? And then from that, it's like, okay, so how much time am I spending in my body? Do I know what safety means? And that's the difference between what I do and what a therapist does. Like a therapist, they're all about the origin. They want to talk about your childhood and what led to it and talk about the event and things like that. And I'm not mocking them. Like it's very valuable, but it's like, I found when I was in therapy, I came out of it being like, fantastic. Now I'm mad at my mom. What do I do now? Like it didn't really do much for me other than make me realize how broken I was and being like, oh, great. So I'm always going to be this way. I needed something to re-solidify. How do I shift my nervous system so I can actually start to change it? And from there, we can actually start to individually work on what people need to work on.
Yeah, that's such a good place to start, because I love what you said about finding resistance doing certain things. So it's not about, like you see online, like all the people doing yoga and meditation and all the things, you're like, why can't I do that? But it's starting with what actually works for you and building up to get to that safety area. I love that, because I was very resistant to yoga for quite a while, but now I do it all the time.
And a lot of people are, like, to be honest, like I've been in this self-development world for 6 years now, and I was only into CrossFit and HIIT training and like doing yoga. I don't understand, but even though like I knew it was good for my nervous system, I didn't get it at all. And my brain couldn't actually get comfortable in it because the stillness was actually very uncomfortable. And so it was like working my way down, being like, okay, can we walk a little bit more? Can we do 5 days instead of 7? Can we do 3 days instead of 5? Can we just work our way down in a way and like also get over this whole body dysmorphia concept that we get stuck in as well? And then like work with our nervous system on that, being like, in what other ways can, because you can't just take something away. When it comes to your nervous system, you have to replace it with something. So it's like, what is this protecting me from? Whatever habit you have, whether it's smoking, whether it's drinking, whether it's working out too much, like they can be healthy too. They can still whatever, but like whatever it is, it's what is actually protecting me from. And when you get that answer, you start to rewire that, being like, okay, so what can I replace that with? What need is getting met from doing this habit that I'm clinging to? And how can I replace that with something that is more aligned with the future version of myself that I'm trying to become?
Yes. I'm like loving all that. You're like speaking right to me, because I'm like, that's exactly what I did. I was resistant for so long, so I just did what I could. And then eventually I got to where I could be more into it and more connected with yoga. Yeah. So, being a podcaster, most of my listeners are podcasters. I have found that since I've been telling my story and using my voice, it's actually helped heal some of the things that I've been going through. So, do you encourage women to speak out more about their stories and the trauma that they've experienced?
Yeah, that's entirely the course that I have right now, Unbreakably Bold, of when shame can't live in the light. And if we continually, and I did this for a very long, I built a very successful company, I did the whole thing, not speaking about my trauma, not speaking about it. And it was always this fear of, what if they find out? And it's, I'm an imposter. And we all go through, like, we never will not have imposter syndrome. You will always have it. At every stage, you will have it. That means you're learning something new and you've stepped into a new arena. It is a good thing to have. But when it's that type of fear of, oh my God, what if they figure out all of the shit that I've been through? What if they, like, this whole kind of thing? And it's like, it finally gets to a point, like what brought me to who I am now is like, you go through some type of rupture and you're like, you know what? I'm sick of this mask. I'm sick of it. Let me be fully seen. And there's ways of telling your story too, where it's like, it's not pity me, hear my story. It's look at who it's one of those things where I'm always careful. Like when I teach my clients like storytelling and content and things of that nature, it's like share from your scar, not your current wound. If you haven't actually processed what you have been going through and it still is very open and you haven't figured out the lesson yet, then it's a little bit too soon. And it's not to say there's any shame around it, but as a podcaster, as a creative, as a coach, as a mentor, like all the things, like it's to teach someone something. And so what are you learning from that? And that's okay. That like when I was going through my breakup, like I didn't even know how to speak about it because I was like, I haven't processed it yet. That I'm running programs around sacred singlehood at the moment. Like, oh my God, what do I do now? It's of course, universe, thank you very much for this portal of activation. But it's like sitting there and telling yourself the story of what lesson am I learning right now and how can I use what I'm going through, because everything happens for us. Like the thing you're going through right now is the story that you're going to tell eventually, right? Like we all know that. We love, especially podcasters, we love storytelling. That's the thing. It's like our heart, it's our like activation of like, hear my like strength. And it's just looking at it in that way of like, how can you activate your voice to activate truth in someone else and know that whatever you're going through, it's always for someone, whether it's for your podcast, whether it's to tell your children the story someday, whether it's to run a company, like you never know what it's for, but have the full belief that it's always for something.
Yes. And when you get that person that connects with your story and reaches out to you, like that's the best to know that you've influenced somebody and just from sharing what you've gone through.
100%. 100%.
Yes. Sorry. I think you answered all my questions. Is there anything else that you want to like touch on?
What can I think of? No, I think that comes to mind that you think your listeners struggle with when it comes to storytelling or trauma or anything like that?
Yeah, just the fear of telling our story and being scared, like you said, of what people are going to think. I think that holds us back a lot. And that's why a lot of people don't share their story, their fear, that judgment.
And I'll take it one step deeper with that. It's the fear of the rejection of it. Like we all have that deep desire to be fully seen and fully expressed and to have the confidence and the radiance and the magnetism. And like, we know someone who's like that and we desire it. And yet it's, but what if I don't have that? What if I share my story and it's met with, I don't know, it pisses someone off, or like my family views me something differently, or my friendships now know this thing about me. And it's something I always talk to my clients about. One, that's just a story you tell yourself, right? That's again, trauma. That is your roadblock. That is something somewhere you got rejected at some point, and therefore something told you are not valued as you are. So let's self-defense. And it's a very feminine wound that every single one of us have. Every single one of us has. And the more you realize none of us have a freaking clue what we're doing, the easier life gets to become. Like all of us are just like 7-year-olds in human shells walking around being like, am I doing this right? Like, we don't know. Like, none of us know. It's just like who you claim to be. I always run this joke with my friends because I'm a very bold person. I have the red lipstick and I have the personality and whatever. And it's because I pretend every day is freaking Halloween. Who do I want to be? And what story do I want to tell? And I'll dress up in like these bold outfits. And they're like, what are you doing today? I'm like, I don't know. Felt like being an alien. Seems like a good idea. And just stop taking it so seriously. It's like fear. We live our lives pretending like one day we're not going to have it. Every one of us is afraid. just the people that make the bold moves are the ones that are sitting there going, yeah, I have 49% fear, but I also have 51% trust. So I'm going to lean into that. But if we're coming from a space all the time, I have 80% fear and 20% trust, we're not like one nervous system match for the universe. That doesn't match. You're only going to like your reticular activating system. You're only going to try and fulfill your belief of things don't work. This isn't for me. This room, I can't sit at this table. My voice doesn't matter. Like you're always going to find beliefs to solidify that. That's literally how your brain is wired and made. But that's when you start to use that 5% conscious thinking brain to seek out a different narrative and to start to reprogram the way things work. You know what I mean? So it's really like sitting in that fact, like we're all afraid. We all have imposter syndrome. We all think we're saying the same things and we talk too fast, or we're saying the wrong things, or we messed up on the words, or we didn't use the right phrases, or we said the wrong words. Especially for me, when like I'm speaking on science, I'm like, was that the right? Like, I don't even know. Like, I don't have, like, I jumped on my masterclass the other day. I was like, I don't even know if my microphone's on right now. Can someone let me know? And they're like, okay. Like, it just let your human be there in the process of creating change. Like we live in a world now, especially because of COVID and everything, people want people. Let that be. Let your story be told and let your fear be part of that story. Like getting on your lives and being like, I'm terrified right now. How are you guys doing? Can you like when I first started out, I'd have to be like, guys, I'm so anxious right now. Can you tell me if I'm speaking too quickly so I can slow down and stop speaking so quickly? And they're like, yeah, sure. We're all feeling these things, but we just want the permission slip. So write yourself that damn permission slip every morning if that's what you need to be like, it's okay. I like something I say to myself every single day is I can do hard things. Because I'm afraid too, all the time, with everything I do. Like every single thing. I'm like, I don't know. Is this going to work? Who knows? Let's go. And it's like, we can do hard things. There you go. There's your permission slip.
Yes. And nobody wants, or people don't connect with a perfect person because there's no such thing. So they connect with you when you make your mistakes and when you tell the imperfect things that you do, which I know I connect more with people when they do that.
And that's the thing, right? What I realize when I think of like when I'm coming up with sales or I'm working with my clients on that and creating their systems and structures and like, is this email enough? Is this funnel enough? Is blah, 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 all the very masculine energy kind of things. It's like, how do you like to be spoken to? How do you like to sell? How do you like landing pages to be? How do you like your content to be? What podcasts do you listen to? I bet you it is not the perfect story of how banging their love life is and how healthy they are and all these kind of things. And oh my God, like it's when that perfect person gets knocked off their pedestal and you're like, holy pickles, that's a real human. And if they can do hard things, that means I can do hard things. Look at who you're connected with and what stories vibe on with you and what really lights you up. And that's it. But yeah, we're always striving for perfection and also witnessing when that comes out, because that's just a social media thing. Like we all have highlight reels and we all have this stuff and we love our filters. And don't get me wrong, I love a filter, but like we all have that kind of stuff. And it's like being able to recognize, like, and I'll give a personal example. Like for me and my social media, like I purposefully make it look like it's a magazine. I'm like, I want to look at it like it's a magazine. It's very orchestrated. It's very constructed. I know that's not people's thing. Sometimes they just want the real nitty gritty, whatever. But like being able to look at the difference of the two, they're still people. And we're still, even the nitty gritty is portraying an image of the nitty gritty. Like it is all art. It is all an art form. So stop looking at things being like, oh man, their life is so perfect and I can't speak about this and I can't do that. It's no, we're all doing that. It's all orchestrated. And to be able to self-regulate through that, being like, oh yeah, like I'm triggered right now looking at this, thinking I need to be perfect. I should probably put my phone away then. I should probably go regulate myself then.
Yes, I find that a lot too. I have to put my phone down after so much if I start finding myself in that comparison mode.
Oh my God, the comparison trap is real.
Yes.
It's so real.
Yes.
All the time.
This was a great conversation. Thank you so much for being on today. How can the listeners connect with you? Because I know they're going to want to go be in your space.
Guys, come hang out over on my orchestrally curated Instagram. My Instagram is it's Laura Patricia Martin, so ITS Laura Patricia Martin. And then our podcast brand course content creation one is Healing to Happy. So Healing TO Happy. And that's where you're going to get information based. Over on my personal one, you're just going to see beautiful images and nice little stories and things like that. But you'll probably also get a voice note from me being like, oh my God, hi, thanks for coming to my party. Like everyone that comes through. I just like to connect with people. So if you are listening to this and you come over to social media, just come say hi. Like that's all we do. We like to make it a party.
Yes. And I'll make sure those are all in the show notes. Thank
Perfect.
you again for being on today.
Thank you so much, Jillian.